Hi, I'm Taylor.
And I'm Allison.
And you're listening to
the Conscious Health Podcast. Hi, and welcome to the Conscious Health Podcast. On this week's episode, we'll be introducing ourselves and discussing our plans for this podcast. We'll be talking about how we came up with the idea and concept and what we hope to accomplish through this platform. Taylor, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. So my name's Taylor, and I'm from Windsor, Ontario.
And I'm Allison, and I'm from Mississauga, Ontario. And we're both attending the University of Guelph in the Nutritional and Nutraceutical program, and that's actually how we met.
Yeah.
So this podcast is actually part of a course that we're taking called Teaching, Learning, and Knowledge Translation.
So basically, it's an independent course that we can create any project that we want in order to translate and teach others about any topic, really, but we've decided on health. Our podcast is called the Conscious Health Podcast, and through this platform, we are hoping to translate knowledge, research, and experiences around conscious health in order to improve people's lives, the planet, and our communities. In doing so, we would like to support others in discovering and building healthy lives in whatever way that manifests for them. So conscious health is really what you make it. You can craft a practice that serves you and your personal ecosystem. So why don't we define conscious health? What's the definition for you?
All right, so for me, conscious health is just keeping in mind everything that relates to health and doing what's best for yourself and the people around you, as well as the environment. So whether that be eating healthy food options, doing exercise, hanging out with your friends, making environmentally conscious decisions. So, packing your lunch as opposed to buying it. Just things like that, keeping in mind everything, not just yourself, but people around you, the environment around you as well. What about you? How do you define conscious health?
Similar to you, like being intentional with all the choices you make in order to support the well-being of not only ourselves, but the environment and the people around you, your community, and so forth. Consciousness is also a daily practice, and it can help us make the decisions to, support our well-being and our future health. Also, understanding and appreciating that health is beyond our physical and dietary patterns is really important. So things like gratitude and spirituality and being connected with who we are can really impact our health.
I definitely agree with you. You bring up some really good points. I really like the point about gratitude. Mm-hmm. I feel like people don't really practice that. They just go on with their lives and, something bad might happen in the day and then, all they can focus on is that. But I think it's very important to realize, how fortunate you are and that you have the ability to be able to practice conscious health. So whether that be like going to the grocery store, that you're able to buy those like fresh fruits and vegetables, things like that. So I really like that point.
Mm-hmm. And even if you're not, just being grateful for, on the walk here, actually, I practiced gratitude by, thinking how grateful am I that I get to live in such a beautiful city, be around such amazing people and a great community, and just those daily things, or, the flower you walk by every morning. Mm-hmm. Those little things really add up.
Definitely. No, I really like that. I used to actually, a couple years ago, I used to do this thing where I would have a piece of paper, and at the end of the day, I would write down like one good thing that happened to me.
Oh, great.
So then like at the end, of the month or something, I could look back and be like, wow, what a good month I had. Because all the highlights of the month, right? So kind of like
such a good idea.
Puts things into perspective. Something else that I think kind of can go hand in hand with conscious health is being conscious about like your mental well-being and mental state. And I know one of the big kind of popular things that have come up recently are like those adult coloring books.
Yes.
Yep. So I have one of those, and I use it from time to time. It's kind of a nice way to just de-stress and put my energy into something else as opposed to, thinking about schoolwork or, my jobs or things like that. So it's just kind of a nice way to unwind.
Yeah, it really gets you out of whatever headspace you were in.
Just able to do something that kind of de-stresses you and puts you into a better mood. So, of course, that could be a bunch of different things. Exercise. One of my roommates actually really likes baking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cooking and baking are great exercises for supporting your health and well-being.
Exactly. And it might not kind of line up with this whole like nutritious health and nutrition, but sometimes you need to have like a cookie or a muffin or something. And it's just a way, kind of an outlet to put your energy into, especially if you've been having a tough day or anything like that. So
yeah, part of health is being flexible and enjoying food, whether that be healthy or unhealthy. Obviously, we're always trying to consume the healthiest option, but yeah, part of food and health is the enjoyment of it.
I definitely agree. You also mentioned a really good point about environmental consciousness as well.
Yeah, that's a big one.
What do you do in terms of kind of keeping that in mind, like tying into the conscious health idea and how any like practices or anything that you do to kind of keep in mind the environment and ensure the health of the environment as well?
Well, one thing I do is I'm always trying to reduce my material and food waste. I really, really try to make sure that no food goes to waste. So usually dinners are look in the fridge, what looks like it needs to be eaten, eat that, because then it doesn't go to waste. And also material waste, so reducing plastic, using reusable containers, and buying in bulk. Also, like clothing, a lot of people forget about that.
Yep.
But buying used clothing and donating your clothing that you're not using anymore, and repurposing old shirts into towels or whatnot, just to reduce your overall waste and your consumption also.
Yeah, no, those are some really good points. I know definitely for sure that a lot of people don't consider the whole clothing aspect about it. But it takes a lot of resources, a lot of water to be making all these clothing. And people don't realize like what a big impact that has on the environment. So, yeah, I think more more media and things like that need to cover this topic because it's not really talked about, right? Like all these like fast fashion brands, like no one discusses it ever. But I think it's super important to kind of keep that in the back of your mind and try and do whatever you can to maybe not necessarily like completely avoid it, but just alternatives, whether that be going to like a thrift store, consignment store, right? And you can find some pretty cool things. So
and there's also things you might not want to buy used.
Exactly.
Like running shoes, that's a hard thing to buy used. And also to get the best quality exercise, you may need to buy new shoes, and that's okay. Like, doing what you can.
Right.
I feel like that's what this is all about. And also with regard to ecosystem health, some other habits are gardening, which is super simple. And right now it's just a container garden on my back deck, but that reduces the transport, like so many things, even pesticides, because I'm not using any, chemicals, all of that kind of stuff. Also supporting local businesses.
Definitely.
So not only with food, but other handcrafted items or just people selling things in your local community that can really support the health of your community, both like socially and
economically.
Yes, thank you. So that's also something that I really enjoy doing, and it also is really satisfying and makes you feel good. Are there any other practices that you do in order to put conscious health into your everyday life?
Well, in terms of like, like beauty products and like
Mm.
health products and things like that, even that I try and buy products that are like, organic or are as natural as possible.
Yeah.
Don't test on animals, that sort of thing. Have a good, they have like a good idea behind the purpose of their company.
Okay, so they, give back or yeah, trying to reduce waste or okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I also really like the point about the food waste. Food waste is also a big, big problem. And I think people don't really realize, they think, oh, this head of lettuce has gone bad. I'm just going to toss it out. Like, it's not going to make a difference. It just
Yeah.
is compostable. But really, it does make a big, big difference. And I think it's super important to kind of keep that in mind as well and just always try and use as much of the food as possible.
You could use the stalk of a broccoli in a soup or,
Exactly.
maybe not in a smoothie. I don't know. Some people might do that. Or using the tops of beet greens. There's those little things that, yeah, they make a big difference.
Exactly. And something else I do as well is I practice a vegan or like plant-based diet as well. I know there's always like jokes about vegans being like, you'll be able to tell who's the vegan because they'll tell you right away. And here I am sharing this information willingly.
Well, you did it before I did, so you beat me to that. That's part of conscious health. Like, that's really being conscious about your impact on the environment, even animals themselves, and food sustainability as well.
Yes,
A lot
that's
of
a
people,
huge thing.
Yeah, they don't realize that plants are more sustainable. We could get into that topic, but let's just say that plants are more sustainable.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a great way to practice conscious health. Just some other ideas around conscious health is gardening. And I mentioned that for ecological health, but that's also mental health too. Really cultivating your own food is so rewarding and it's really relaxing. Some other things are like yoga.
Right.
And also community. And I find that's really highly linked to food and exercise. Whenever I'm eating food, like it's great to involve a community with that. And probably once a week, actually, I get together with friends and we eat, whether that's a potluck or, just, me and a friend. And then also, yeah, hiking, running, that's usually with a friend. And then you talk, and that connection is super important. And I know that, I don't know if you know about the blue zones. It's like where people have lived the longest.
Yes.
And one of the essential points of all these communities is that there is a strong sense of community.
Yes.
And you have those connections. So that's very important for cognitive health, emotional health, everything.
Right. No, I do know now what you're talking about. And I remember actually I was reading some paper about it, and it was saying that like the sense of community within those communities is like so strong, and people always have a group of friends with them, and I think that's important. Like I remember reading that there is like, and it, like you would have these friends for like your entire life, like you met them at school, or you were neighbors and you just grew up with them and like literally would be with them for the entirety of your life. Like every week maybe you would get together, have like a meal together or do some activity. And it was throughout their entire lifetime. And I think that was kind of what I was like, wow, that is amazing, because like here nowadays, like you don't really get that, people like you'll send someone a message and they'll be like, oh, sorry, we can't meet, I'm busy doing this. And people's schedules are so hectic. And even in terms of like eating meals, like, a lot of times, like, I'll maybe eat like one meal a day with my roommates or something, but just because we all have different schedules. And so I think it's like really important to kind of try and make an effort to meet up with, like a friend, a family member, like a mentor, anyone really, and just like share a meal, just talk to them. And I think that's a super, super important point.
Yeah, and sadly, I feel like community is something that's kind of dying. And I know that there are a lot of people trying to revive that. But, back home, some people don't know their neighbors. Like, they really don't know their community, who they're living next to.
Right.
And I really would love to bring that back. And I'm not sure how, but hopefully, even the farmers market, though, getting to know the people in your local community,
right,
getting involved in different projects within your community. You can easily make those connections, and I would really like to work on that actually this summer. One other, I think this will be the last thing unless you have something else, but serving others I think is very important, and you can do it in so many ways. Like cooking a meal for someone who might have a really busy schedule right now, or just thinking of someone, dropping by to a friend's house just to say hi. Little things like that can be serving others, or you can do something as big as like, helping out at the food bank and things like that. I think are very important. Again, all encompassing with your health.
Right. I 100% agree with that. Yeah, so I think what we're trying to get across here is that conscious health encompasses so many different ideas. It's much more beyond just, a healthy diet and like exercising. It's like mental well-being, and that can be, worked on in so many different ways, whether it be doing some activity, meeting up with friends, helping your community, contributing to your community. Yeah, that's what we wanted to get across, is that conscious health does encompass so many things, and much more than just diet and exercise, which are generally what people think of when they hear the word health, is diet and exercise,
for
right?
sure. That's number one,
So we're kind of hoping that we'll be able to shed light on some important topics within the realm of conscious health, and just discuss our take on it.
Yeah, expand the idea of health, too. Yeah, I think that's very important. So did you want to talk a little bit about what got you into health?
Sure. So for me, there was never really like a defining moment or anything that kind of pushed me towards it. I think it was just over time. Like I grew up as a competitive dancer, so health, and like nutrition, diet was always kind of in the back of my mind. And so I think just as I was going through high school and I was like, oh, what am I going to do after high school? Like, where do I want to go to school? What do I want to study? Health was kind of one of the first things that came to mind. I was very interested in health. And then from there, I kind of realized that diet and nutrition plays a massive role in that. And I realized, how powerful it can be, like food and, various bioactives and things that are in food, how powerful that could be in one's health. And so that's kind of how I decided to go into nutrition. And in terms of like the program specifically, I know we're in nutritional and nutraceutical.
Yeah, it's a
science.
super specified program.
Yeah, it's very specified. So like I never really wanted to become a dietitian or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was more interested in the science behind it, so what was actually happening in our bodies and how these foods could actually make a difference in our bodies. I think that's what like I was really, really interested in and still am.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so obviously, I can't design a meal plan for anyone, but, I could maybe make suggestions of, I've read this research recently and this is what it's saying. And that's really what I'm interested in, is understanding how and why it's happening. Like certain things like that are happening in our bodies because of food. What about you? How did you decide to get into health and nutrition?
Well, similarly, I played a lot of competitive sports. So like you said, it was always kind of in the back of my mind, but it really wasn't a huge, focal point. Until actually in grade 9, I think I was, 15 maybe?
Yeah, 14, 15.
Yeah, I got very ill. So I actually developed an autoimmune condition, kind of out of nowhere.
Right.
And, 5 years of going to different doctors and that, they pretty much had no answer. So it's actually, for anyone who's wondering, it's called dysautonomia, and it's a dysfunction of the autonomic nervous system. So things like digestion, pupil dilation, blood pressure regulation, so on and so forth, are all just kind of not working properly, out of sync, that kind of thing. So it really, it was hard. And they didn't have answers. They didn't have treatment. And I just thought, I cannot live like this. I took it upon myself. I did so much research, the dark web of health. Yeah. So anyway, also, having myself as a guinea pig, I tested all these diets on myself. I, wrote down, I was kind of a scientist, how did that make me feel? What about this food? What about that food? So on and so forth. And I came to a point where it was my last hope was a whole food, plant-based diet. And I just went, all in. And surprisingly, within a couple weeks, most of my symptoms were gone.
Wow.
Mind you, I still have it. If I eat foods that trigger an immune reaction, some of those symptoms come back, not in the same, or with the same force that they were before, but it still is there. But anyway, yeah, I was kind of forced into this, but I'm very happy about that now. Looking back, I couldn't be more happy that it happened to me.
Right.
Because of what it's brought to my life and my understanding and my knowledge of health and nutrition. And it wasn't all food either. The majority is food because it is an immune response.
Right.
But yoga and breathing and meditation, that really helps me as well, because stress can trigger immune reactions too. It's not just the food. So it really expanded my knowledge of health. And that's how I got into it. And now I'm just so passionate and I want to help other people. And I also would love to teach, youth and younger children to start earlier.
Right.
So they don't have to go through that. They just know, this is what is healthy. And, enjoying healthy food.
Right.
And really understanding food itself. Yeah, so.
Definitely. Yeah, so we both had kind of different paths to get there, you know. Yours took a slight detour, but it's...
Yeah, a little longer too, maybe.
But it's good that you were able to kind of take something that might have been really negative and turn it into a positive and realize your passion in life, you know, and that you want to be able to help other people and pass along your knowledge. Did you want to talk about kind of our plans in terms of this podcast and what we hope to do in the future?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I think we are hoping to talk about current issues regarding conscious health.
Definitely.
So, I mean, it's such a broad topic that we were thinking things like Canada's new food guide.
Yep.
Not so new anymore, but still very relevant to conscious health.
Definitely.
All the things we touched on, actually, it does mention community and being mindful about what you're eating, not so many portion sizes, just enjoying food itself. Other things like food waste or misconceptions around health or nutrients or diets. I think we're also hoping to interview researchers to really understand the truth around various health concepts. So exercise, diet, the possibilities are endless, really, especially at such a great university like this. We have access to so many different researchers. Another thing would be, interviewing experts on food waste. They don't have to be in research, but people that know a lot about food waste, exercise, the health sciences, and touching on the current state of things, recent changes to these parts of health, and how you and us as well can make these positive changes. So I think these people can bring a lot.
I think so
to the
too.
table.
And it's going to be really exciting to be able to talk to some of these people and hear what their take is on these different issues. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think our conscious health practices will be manipulated, warped. There's going to be some changes for sure.
Definitely. I'm really excited to be able to keep working on this project. And I'm glad that we have an opportunity to be able to do podcasts and to interview people.
Yeah, very lucky to do this.
Definitely. All right, so I believe that is the end of our podcast for this week.
I feel good about this. I feel like, we've said our piece. And
so hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we'll tune in again next week for another episode of the Conscious Health Podcast. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.